From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang, and here are the news. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. called on the newly promoted senior officials of the Philippine National Police, or PNP, to exercise fairness and focus on their personal and career growth amid political noise. During the oath-taking of the 50 PNP star-ranked officers at the Malacañang Palace in Manila, President Marcos emphasized the greater influence the officers now carry as they hold broader authority in public operations. He said they should continue to uphold the law to earn the public trust and promote the welfare of the entire police force. President Marcos warned that the threats posed by political grandstanding and possible conflict can trigger disorder which may escalate beyond physical spaces. He reaffirmed his administration's continued support for the PNP personnel, acknowledging their crucial role in protecting the nation. He said the government would continue implementing reforms aimed at boosting police officers' capability and morale, noting that he had already ordered the implementation of a three-tranche salary increase and higher daily subsistence allowance starting in 2026.
So I ask you to continue to improve yourselves personally, professionally, institutionally. Do not be complacent. Be firm, be fair, be decisive, while remaining fully respectful to the rights and dignity of every single Filipino. The challenges before us are becoming even more sophisticated and even more complex. We face social divides, political noise, emerging tensions within our communities. At the same time, digital and technological threats now operate across borders and platforms. These threats can trigger disorder, which may escalate beyond physical spaces. In this environment, our people rely on the police as their immediate and dependable line of protection. Given the nature of your duties, be assured that this administration stands firmly behind the Philippine National Police. So alongside these measures, we remain committed to supporting and ensuring the welfare of your families, recognizing that their well-being is integral to your service as a nation. So continue to serve with honor, lead with purpose, always act in the best interest of our great nation and of the Filipino people.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
We are temporarily interrupting our Dateline Malacañang news to give way to the speech of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. as he led the oath-taking ceremony of the newly promoted generals and flag officers of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the graduates of foreign pre-commissioned training institutions.
Mula sa Presidential Communications Office at Radyo Pilipinas, ito ang Presidential Live Event. Presidential Live Event.
Secretary Ralph Recto, DND Undersecretary Ireneo Espino, the AFP Chief of Staff General Romeo Browner, and the major service commanders, the newly promoted generals and flag officers of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and the graduates of the foreign pre-commissioned training institutions, my fellow workers in government, distinguished guests, friends and families of those who have just taken their oaths, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are reminded today that this oath-taking is a reaffirmation of a sacred trust, the respect for the Constitution, service to the Filipino people, and loyalty to the Republic. I congratulate our generals and flag officers, including the two newly commissioned graduates of foreign pre-commissioned training institutions. As you open another chapter, you also accept greater responsibility to lead with wisdom, restraint, and moral clarity. Your promotion reflects a nation's confidence in your integrity and professionalism, your dedication to duty. The stars you bear shine more brightly today as constant reminders of your obligations to protect our sovereignty, to uphold our national security, and safeguard the freedoms of every Filipino. This responsibility is shared by our reservists, whose roles as a force multiplier continues to strengthen the capabilities of the armed forces. This ceremony serves as a powerful affirmation that our loyalty is anchored to the Constitution, to our democratic institutions, and above all, to the people. In recent months, we have taken meaningful steps to ensure that the AFP remains a model of discipline, competence, and service. We have engaged international partners in the conduct of training programs, strengthening cooperation, resource management, and interagency coordination. Through joint exercises and defense partnerships, we have also sharpened our readiness to address existing and emergent security challenges. As your President and your Commander-in-Chief, I reaffirm this administration's commitment to the continued modernization of the armed forces. In fact, we have taken steps to better support the women and men in uniform. We have approved the increase of the base pay of military and uniformed personnel. We also increased this year the daily subsistence allowance of all military and uniformed personnel to 350 pesos. All these reflect our principle that honoring service means ensuring that those who serve are given the support and dignity that they rightfully deserve. May you always wear the stars on your shoulders as daily reminders of your duty to lead with integrity, to serve with humility, and if necessary, fight for the Republic with honor and with courage. To the families of our generals and flag officers, especially in this Christmas season, we recognize your patience, your sacrifices, and your support. Just as family lies at the heart of every single Filipino home, so too are you at the heart of our nation's service. So together, let us continue to serve the Filipino people, protect our sovereignty, and help build a stronger, more secure, bagong Pilipinas. Maraming salamat, maligayang Pasko sa inyong lahat. Mabuhay ang sandatahang lakas ng Pilipinas.
You just listened to the speech of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Moving on with our Dateline Malacañang news, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. called on the Philippine National Police or PNP to beef up security measures and maintain vigilance nationwide during the holiday season to ensure public safety amid increased travel and public activities. He urged police personnel to maintain a visible and reassuring presence on major roads, public spaces, transport hubs, and communities where families gather during Yulitude festivities. President Marcos reminded the newly promoted officers that public service does not pause even during times of celebration, stressing the importance of continuing to serve with honor and act in the best interest of the great nation and of the Filipino people.
As we are in the holiday season, when more people are out in public and families are on the move, this period calls for heightened security and vigilance. So maintain a visible and reassuring presence on our roads, in public spaces, in transport hubs, and in communities where families gather. Tiyakin ninyo ang kaligtasan ng bawat mamamayan upang tunay natin maramdaman ang saya ng Kapaskuhan na may kapanatagan at pagkakaisa at may tunay na ligaya. The season likewise reminds us that public service does not pause even in times of celebration.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. served free meals and distributed gifts to walk-in clients at the Walang Gutom Kitchen in Pasay City as part of the government's efforts to address involuntary hunger and support individuals and families in street situations. In line with the ulitude spirit of generosity and hope, President Marcos served the meals to beneficiaries and handed out gifts, underscoring the administration's commitment to protecting the most vulnerable sectors. The activity coincided with the holiday season, the first anniversary of the Walang Gutom Kitchen, and the inauguration of the Pag-abot Processing Center or PPC. Implemented by the Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD, the Walang Gutom Kitchen operates under the Pag-abot program, serving as a community-based food bank that provides free, nutritious meals to 250 to 300 walk-in clients daily during breakfast and lunch. Most beneficiaries are children, individuals, and families living in street situations who become walk-in beneficiaries of the Pag-abot program once they express their willingness to be reached out to by social workers. Meanwhile, the Pag-abot Processing Center, a temporary shelter facility with a 180-bed capacity, formally opened to provide interim shelter recovery, protection, and home life care services to children, individuals, and families in street situations. The facility was constructed in April 2024 through a memorandum of agreement with the assistance of the Office of the President, with renovations completed later that year. The Pag-abot program aims to reduce the risks and vulnerabilities of children, individuals, and families in street situations by providing comprehensive social protection services and opportunities to help them live safely and productively. Since its implementation in April 2023, the Pag-abot program has provided services or interventions to 6,554 families in street situations or FISS, 1,169 individuals in street situations or ISS, and 535 children in street situations or CISS. The DSWD has reached out to 7,478 out of the 11,000 profiled FISS, 1,902 out of the over 5,000 profiled ISS, and 1,107 CISS.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has directed the Anti-Terrorism Council or ATC to remain vigilant against possible terror threats as a rejected foreign media's misleading characterization of the Philippines as an ISIS training hotspot. Malacañang said Wednesday. Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro reminded the foreign media to be discerning and responsible in their reporting, particularly in how they depict the Philippines, stressing that branding the country as a terror hub could harm its integrity and image. Citing the National Security Council or NSC statement, Castro said there are no validated reports showing that suspects in the recent Bondi Beach shooting in Australia allegedly underwent military-style training from local terror groups in the Philippines as a month before the attack. Castro said Philippine authorities in coordination with international partners continue to verify all available information. Still, no evidence has been presented to support claims that the country was used for terrorist training. Castro also noted assessments from the United Nations and the United States indicating that ISIS-linked groups in the Philippines now operate in a fragmented and diminished capacity. She added that violence in Mindanao is largely driven by historical conflicts and local clan disputes rather than the operational capacity of ISIS-affiliated organizations.
Of course, the President strongly rejects the sweeping statement and the misleading characterization of the Philippines as the ISIS training hotspot. At dahil dito ay napanayan po natin o nakausap po natin mismo ang pamunuan ng NSC at ito po ang kanilang tugon at aking babasahin. Regarding reports describing the Philippines as an ISIS hotspot, the characterization is misleading. Currently, there is no validated report or confirmation that the individuals involved in the Bondi Beach incident received any form of training in the Philippines. Philippine authorities, in coordination with international partners, continue to verify all available information, but no evidence has been presented to support claims that the country was used for terrorist training. Since the 2017 Marawi siege, Philippine security forces have significantly degraded ISIS-affiliated groups in the country. Both United Nations and the U.S. government assessments indicate that these groups now operate in a fragmented and diminished capacity. Violence in Mindanao is largely driven by historical conflicts and local clan disputes, rather than the operational capacity of ISIS-affiliated organizations. Recent assessments indicate significant improvements in the domestic security environment that were previously affected by terrorism. These developments reflect the sustained efforts of our security forces and the resilience of our communities in advancing peace, order, and development across the nation. The President orders the Anti-Terrorism Council and member agencies to remain vigilant in preventing any terrorist activity within Philippine territory and to continuously enhance coordination with international partners to safeguard national security. Yan po ang responde ng NSC.
Mass shooting at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia killed at least 16 people and wounded dozens more during a Hanukkah celebration. Authorities have described the incident as a terrorist attack inspired by Islamic State or ISIS ideology. Australian police identified the suspects as a father and son, 50-year-old Sajid Akram and his 24-year-old son Naveed Akram. The elder Akram was killed by police at the scene and the younger suspect remains hospitalized under arrest. According to reports, the pair traveled to the Philippines in November of 2025, spending nearly the entire month there before returning to Sydney just weeks before the shooting.
Dateline Malacañang.
Congress still has enough time to deliberate on the proposed 2026 national budget and pass it on time, Malacañang said Wednesday. This comes as Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro reiterated that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has firm stance against a reenacted budget. Castro issued a statement a day after Senator Panfilo Lacson expressed preference for a reenacted budget in early 2026 over a potentially unchecked, corruption-conducive, and graft-ridden General Appropriations Act for next year. Castro, however, said Malacañang is expecting lawmakers to pass a good budget on time.
Maganda po ang suwestyon ni Senator Ping Lacson. Pero ang nais po talaga ng Pangulo ay hindi magkaroon ng reenacted budget. At hindi pa naman po natatapos ang Disyembre. December 17 pa lang po. At sa tingin po ng Pangulo ay may sapat pang panahon para aralin ito. I don't want to mention any lesser evil. I will mention a good option. Ang good option, araling mabuti. Hindi pa po tapos ang Disyembre. Maayos na budget na maipapasa on time.
Warned that many government projects could face delays if the proposed 2026 national budget is not approved on time. The government aims to avoid a reenacted budget, which occurs when Congress fails to pass the General Appropriations Act or GAA on time, forcing agencies to operate on the previous year's budget. President Marcos has repeatedly emphasized the need for a good budget that is thoroughly studied and free from corruption risks.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang urged hospitals to submit complete records as the Department of Health or DOH and the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation or PhilHealth continue processing claims following reports of delayed reimbursements. This after the Commission on Audit warned that persistent deficiencies in the processing of over 1 billion pesos returned to hospital or RTH claims could affect the financial stability and operational efficiency of DOH retained hospitals. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro said the DOH has been directed to organize and submit the necessary documentation. On delayed PhilHealth claims, Castro explained that hospitals have a 60-day period to submit supporting documents, but many failed to do so promptly. Castro said claim delays have been linked to incomplete hospital documentation and procedural deadlines. Castro said the extension of the claim submission period to 120 days is intended to address delays while ensuring hospitals can still access reimbursements. She stressed that the goal is for hospitals to submit complete documents on time to facilitate proper processing and payment of claims. RTH claims are reimbursements filed by hospitals for covered services provided to PhilHealth members.
Opo, at sinabi po dyan na ayusin po ang kanilang mga records at nakausap po natin mismo ang pamunuan ng DOH at yan po ay kanilang inaayos at ibinibigay ang sapat na dokumento. At patungkol po di umano sa mga hindi agad nababayaran na mga claims sa PhilHealth. Ayon po sa DOH, meron po kasing date na dapat na maibigay ang claims ng mga ospital. May period within 60 days. At karamihan po sa ibang mga ospital ay hindi po agad nakakapagbigay ng kanilang mga dokumento para sa kanilang claims. At dahil dito po ay ipinag-utos din po ng Pangulo na i-extend po ang maaaring period para makapag-claim ang ibang ospital. Na-extend po ito up to 120 days. Ito po yung tinatawag na claims flexibility. At dahil dito po ay natutugunan po ng DOH, ng PhilHealth, ang kanilang obligasyon. Basta po ang nais lang din po natin, ang mga ospital po ay makapagbigay ng kanilang mga dokumento sa tamang oras at panahon.
Press Officer and Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Prime Water Infrastructure Corporation's potential liabilities will be assessed based on the findings and documentation gathered by the Local Water Utilities Administration, or LUWA, according to Malacañang, amid the continued scrutiny of the troubled water utility firm. Palace Press Officer, Communications Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro said any lapses or shortcomings of Prime Water's management must be accounted for, depending on LUWA's reports and evidence. Castro said LUWA would issue a memorandum circular this month to protect consumers by ensuring that water concessionaires are not disconnected and customers are not billed when service is not provided.
Sa ngayon po, nakausap po natin din at nagre-report naman po ang LUWA sa Pangulo. Ang mga lapses or liabilities ng Prime Water as the management, kung ano po ang kanila maaaring mga kakulangan o naging liabilities ay dapat pong mapanagot. Depende po ito sa pagiging reports or mga dokumentong maiipon para mapakita kung meron mang liability ang Prime Water. At sa ngayon po, ano po ang ginagawa ng LUWA para sa mga consumers? Ayon po kay Attorney Joyce Salonga, maglalabas sila ng memorandum circular this month para hindi maputulan ng water service ang mga concessionaires. Ang mga consumers po ay hindi dapat singilin kung wala naman po talagang serbisyong na ibibigay ang Prime Water. So, hintayin po natin ang memorandum circular na ilalabas po ng LUWA patungkol po dito.
To reports, Prime Water will be taken over by a new owner led by Lucio Cos Crystal Bridges Holdings Corporation after the Villar-led company agreed to terms to sell its entire portfolio, subject to completion of the transaction amid regulatory pressure and service complaints. Prime Water, a major water utility operating in partnership with over 100 local water districts, has faced public backlash and formal scrutiny over poor service delivery, including inconsistent water supply and interrupted services across various local water districts, prompting calls for congressional and LUWA investigations earlier this year. Several local government units have sought to terminate joint venture agreements with Prime Water due to chronic service issues, while LUWA has been evaluating remediation and enforcement options, including possible contract termination as a last resort.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Bea Gaza-de Guzman.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.